What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about misconceptions about the UK. Americans have a lot of misconceptions about the UK. I think a lot. I think it's because most of what Americans know and learn about the UK growing up and into adult life is just based on movies, TV shows, random news stuff that we don't really pay a lot of attention to, just random little snippets and tidbits from when we were like kids. And then we grow up and we tend to not focus a lot on stuff outside of America. So this one really hits close to home for me. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about here with misconceptions, but it should be rather fascinating. I don't know if it's misconceptions with how people in the UK speak or how things are run or different stereotypes Americans have of the UK. And either way, this sounds very interesting to me and should, at the very least, teach me a lot of things that perhaps me myself don't understand. Misconceptions I probably have. So, with that being said, let's take a look.
The most common misconception I seem to get is the metric versus imperial. I've mentioned this as a frustration of mine, is that you guys don't seem to commit to a single, like you kind of mix and match, which is interesting because my
Oh my gosh, this is a good one. Just for the record, I think metric is great. If you take a single science course, any sort of serious science class in America in college or high school advanced course, you learn the metric. That's the first time you learn the metric system in America, and our minds are immediately blown and opened up to this amazing, incredible thing that we grow up with the imperial system, and we learn about the metric system like way late in life, and we're like, this is amazing. This is fantastic. Do other people know about this? This is just so that's a whole thing. But what would be confusing to me is if the UK uses a combination of the metric and imperial system. Certain units of measure from each would be actually very confusing to me. So is that correct?
my mum's the same way. My mum measures things in stone, which is, I've never learnt stone.
Stone.
For this video I did homework, had researched it. So I finally learnt how many pounds are in a stone and all that jazz. So
I've heard of stones. It's a very, it's a really cool sounding what measurement, if that makes sense. Like it sounds really tough and cool, like I measure things in stones, but at the same time it sounds kind of archaic and barbaric and I don't understand it. I don't know why pounds is any better, but stones has almost been funny to me. And I never quite understood it.
can't say these videos aren't good for anything, for those wondering. It's 14 pounds is in a stone, I think.
Ah.
Using miles and kilometers. So if you're talking to someone, I'll be like, oh, they'll try and tell me it's X amount of kilometers. And I'm like, oh, but they use miles here. So, or like I'll say how many kilometers something is and then they'll say, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. So I've had to kind of learn miles. And to be honest, I don't really know them that much because it's not an easy conversion. It's like point something.
Totally fine, because we have no idea what, we cannot picture a kilometer in my mind, in general.
So I just halve it basically, so, which I know is not right, but I'm like, I think I'm under rather than over. So if it's 40 miles, I treat it as if it's 80. Which I don't think right. I think it's more like 60. Who knows?
Okay. Good enough for me.
I just drive so that my speed on the car matches the sign as I'm driving. But so many misconceptions that people think the UK is metric because Europe is metric, but it is not.
Okay, I was thinking like, what's the misconception here? Actually, okay, it's that thinking the UK is completely metric. I definitely did think that. So I'm counting this one. This is a misconception that I personally held. I would have thought the UK was entirely metric, like Europe, right? Kind of funny to mix and match a little bit, but who am I to talk? We're out here counting stuff in inches and feet and yards and who knows what.
The UK is higgledy-piggledy. Gotta learn both, which is good, I always think. So,
Yeah.
more education. A lot of people think the Queen is like, has ultimate power.
Yeah.
That isn't the case. She's almost, I don't want to say she's a figurehead, because she does have some power, so she can like veto anything out of government, she can dismiss the entire parliament, I think she can fire ministers.
I'm actually, yeah, this is one of the things I learned super early on when I started learning more about the UK from YouTube. For one thing, Americans definitely do not understand the role of the king or queen in UK. I think most Americans do, like, if they wonder what the purpose is, they kind of scoff at it because we're like, oh, royalty, that's so old and just makes no sense. Um, so that's definitely a thing. But a lot of Americans in particular do think that royalty in the UK has a lot more power than they actually do. From what I understand, royalty is really more of a tradition, representative of the UK. And even though they do technically have the power to do certain things legally, they mostly choose not to. From what I understand, that's kind of like out of date, and even if that stuff exists, it doesn't happen.
She can go to war, she can do all these things, but she won't, because it'd be so much civil unrest, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like, technically she has power, but realistically she won't exercise any of them because it'll upset the public, and then you a
Yeah.
revolution on your hands. So, so the Queen, I would argue, pretty much predominantly, her biggest impact would be for tourism. Obviously, she has power and she does other things, but the amount of tourism dollars that come, because if you're not from the UK, or even if you're from somewhere other than London, you'll probably come to London because you want to see the Crown Jewels, Buckingham
Yeah.
Palace, all that kind of stuff. So, and that's the Queen. And then I think if you
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, huh? Yeah, I mean, royalty in the UK has like a very important purpose in that sense to, yes, they are representatives of the entire nation and they attract a lot of tourism, which is like, you could call it silly, but important to the economy and like representing the culture. So it is actually pretty important. I've also heard Americans like embarrassingly say like, "Oh, have you met the king?" Like, "Oh, you're from Britain. Have you met the king? Have you spoken with him?" Like that's a normal, common thing. Like it's even I know that sounds crazy.
extend to the other royals, like they obviously have their duty. I think they do something with the military, but realistically, they're not going to put a royal in the line of fire. That's too much power in the enemy's hands. But they do a lot of charity work, which I do appreciate. So just raising awareness,
Right.
and then helping out at certain charities and supporting them in that way, which is always good, but not as much power as Disney movies make you think. You know,
Right,
that's
right.
where the medium is.
I think, yeah, I think this misconception is totally accurate. Like, I think a lot of Americans in particular think this. So this is a good one.
Another big one, and this is from Americans, is that Americans seem to think that the UK and Australia have zero guns. And the UK and Australia are pretty similar. So America...
Huh. Well, obviously, I'm gonna let her continue on with this one, but before she does, I gotta say, in my experience, my personal American experience, I've never really thought this, to be honest. I've never thought, like, oh, the UK and Australia, they don't have any guns. I've never really thought about that or anything. The only thing it makes me think of is a lot of other countries look at America and is like, oh, America loves guns. We love our freedom to bear guns, to own guns, and to proudly show them. And that is true to a large extent. That's definitely true. But I wouldn't say the opposite is true, that we think everyone else in the world hates guns or doesn't have guns, or I don't even know the gun laws in the UK, to be honest, or anything about that. So I don't know. I don't know about this one.
thinks the UK and Australia don't have any guns because of how outspoken we are about gun law and that, particularly Port Arthur in Australia.
Okay.
That's not entirely true. We do have guns in both countries. However, in the UK, you can't get semi-automatic, same with Australia. But in terms of like, there are a lot of farmers in both countries, and farmers need guns to do their job.
Yeah.
So they can get it, obviously.
Okay, I mean, she could be totally correct. Like, there could be a lot of outspoken anti-gun things going on, or maybe news about this that went way over my head. That is fine. Good for me to learn about, I guess.
So the farmers do need them to do their jobs effectively. For whatever reason, I'm not a farmer, but I do know they need them. But you can't. I don't know if this was in a film or if it was fact, but I think there was something about you have to wait 7 days before you can have your gun. That's like, so if you buy a gun, if you're angry because you found something out and you're like, oh, I can kill someone, and you go buy a gun, that you have to wait 7 days to calm down. And then maybe in 7 days you might not want to kill them. Maybe you still want to kill them. But at least there's that step in the process.
Okay.
And then there's also...
I mean, it's probably better that way. I've always said getting a gun in America is frighteningly too easy. It's very easy. So that's probably too extreme in that direction.
No semi-automatic. I think there's I'm not a gun expert by any means, so do not hold me as such. However, I think there's a limit on how many bullets you can have, all that kind of stuff, and you have to sit a course, and you have to have a license as well for all of them. So
yeah,
it is still very possible to get a gun if you're a gun head. Go to town, but there are just some rules that make it a bit safer, and they basically translate to Australia as well. But I know a lot of Americans seem to think there are no guns at all. Generally in
you know what? Maybe if I cared more about gun ownership, like personally, if I cared more about that, and I had wondered, oh, what's the law like, and the opinion like overseas and stuff, maybe I would know more about this opinion that she's talking about, this misconception.
London, like in a city, you'd have no guns, whereas in the countryside, that's where they are, because that's where the farmers are. But the UK, London has all its knife crime. However, the knife crime seems to be, from my very limited experience, mostly gang on gang. So like if you're just a normal person going about your normal business, you probably won't get stabbed.
What? Wait, what? This took a turn. All the knife crime in Oh, don't worry. If you're not part of a gang, you probably won't get stabbed. Is she kind of joking, like exaggerating? Maybe you do need a gun now. Like now I'm questioning everything. Okay. It is what it is.
No promises though. Who knows? I think this next misconception's one that I think a lot of you get annoyed about actually, is that people seem to think that the whole of the UK is only London. So when I travel, I know that to you guys I sound Australian, but to people who don't, to non-Brits, I actually sound British because I don't sound like Crocodile Dundee or Steve Irwin, so they assume I'm not Australian.
She does sound British to me. She's absolutely correct. I actually would have assumed that. That's very funny. It's actually very funny. I'm the perfect audience for this, I guess. Yes. Well, she's saying that a lot of people outside of the UK think that the UK is London, basically. True, but even more specific, in America, the vast, vast majority of Americans use the words UK, Britain, and England all interchangeably, as if they are literally the same thing.
So they think I'm British. Even I had a skydiving instructor in Canada who lived on Australia, and he thought I was English. I was like, what are you talking about? Like he lived with us, but he did live in Queensland, which is basically the Steve Irwin accent. Anyways, so anyway, when
she sounds British to me. Like I gotta say, like I don't blame him, her skydiving instructor.
Travel, people think I'm British, and they'll say, "Oh, are you from London? Not from England, not from the UK, not from anywhere." I would love to hear what a Scottish person's experience would be, particularly traveling somewhere that does just seem to think London and the received pronunciation accent's the only accent. So if you're Scottish or Northern, I'm talking Liverpool, I'm talking Manchester, Newcastle, give me a Geordie accent.
That is funny. I guess if you're in her position, like, I feel like you have to have a British accent to experience this, because I'm just not around it as an American. I would never personally be like, "Are you from London? You sound like you're from London." Feel like I'd say Britain, probably. I try to like cast a big as net as possible. That's funny. I could absolutely see people doing that though. So are you from London specifically, as if that accent is tied to London? I get this one. This is probably true.
Tell me what Americans, where they think you're from, because I don't think they would guess that you were British first, from my experience. But I could be wrong. People
Yeah.
seem to say, oh, I'm going to London, I'm not going to the UK or anything. So they just seem to think the whole kingdom is just London, which, if you're not in London, which most of you guys aren't, can be quite frustrating.
Yeah.
I even know I get so many comments on my earlier videos of people saying, get out of London, see the rest of the UK. And I'm like, do you know who I am? I also do travel stuff. So like, I like to travel around. Of course, I've been outside London.
That's very strange to me, why people do that. I think Americans are very guilty of this. Like, when people talk about America, they don't say, oh, are you from New York? Right? Unless I guess I don't know for sure. But that would just seem kind of silly. So I don't know why we say, oh, are you from London? And it's definitely kind of strange.
London just happens to be the workers, unfortunately. Next one will surprise no one, but people think it rains all the time. And depending where you are in the UK,
Yeah.
it does rain a lot. However, it kind of conflicts with my previous point. So people think London's the only place, but then they think it rains all the time. It
Yeah.
doesn't rain that much in the south, and definitely not in London just because of where we are geographically. But obviously Scotland, Newcastle, it does rain quite a bit more than down south.
Okay.
But according to the people who are saying that it rains all the time, they don't really count that as like the UK. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
I think I know what she means. Yeah, okay. So they're wrong on a technicality, but I have heard this one where, oh, it's always rainy in London, or stuff like that. I, as an American, I've definitely heard that. I just never thought much about it, I guess. And according to her, in certain parts of the UK, this is true, just not necessarily London.
you can't have both. You gotta pick one. Obviously, I've said this in depth. I love the UK weather. I feel like it's not too extreme, it's not too cold, it's not too hot, it's just pleasant.
Okay.
You can always be comfortable. You're never like absolutely dying and you're never absolutely freezing, you know?
Okay.
When it gets to a certain heat, you can only take off so many layers, and when it's so cold, like you just have to like wear a balaclava because it's just the air hurts your skin, which was me in Finland in -20.
I think that's a big reason like I enjoy American weather as well. Very exactly how I would describe it. It's not too extreme in either direction. Depending on where you live, of course, but in general, it's totally random.
So, the UK, always easy to feel comfortable. I recommend. I do have a question though. When I was in Australia, I had all of the weather apps because I like tracking it, which makes me very British, I know. But I had an app from the Bureau of Metropolitan the BOM, BOM, website, Bureau of Metropolitry. Oh my god, why can't I say that word? Anyways, and that had a radar, and it was really great because you could see like if rain was coming, how heavy it was going to be, and also wind direction.
Yep.
I haven't been able to find a good one for the UK for this. I just want a radar app or website even, because let's be honest.
I thought this was going to be like some super insightful, fascinating tangent, this question. Only maybe I could answer from my point of view. No, it's can you recommend her an app, a weather app?
The weather app lies, it tells me it's going to be fine, and then I go on a run and it's an absolute downpour. And I'm like, where did this come from, weather app? And then the BBC weather is not too bad. I just would love a radar. So please, if there's any other weather watchers out there, tell me what your weather app to go to is, because I really need one. The other stereotype that the Brits seem to get is that you all have bad teeth. You guys don't. I don't know where this started.
I gotta pause that immediately. This one oh boy. This is in a lot of memes in America. It's on TikTok, it's on social media, it's a running joke. I don't know how it started. It was in all the Austin Powers movies. He made it even more famous in America. This stereotype of people in Britain, the UK, having bad teeth. I've always wondered where that came from. It's very it's very funny, and I don't believe it's true. I don't know why that would be true. It's not. But it is funny.
Also, it's so silly because you guys have, I wonder if you guys were the first people to have universal healthcare. I don't know who the first was, but you guys obviously have universal healthcare, and
Yeah.
like that covers dentistry compared to like the stereotype comes from America because they've all got like veneers and perfect teeth, and they obviously don't. So it should be the other way around. It should be the country without the healthcare system should be the one with bad teeth, but that's not the case.
Right.
But yeah, Brits don't have bad teeth. Got, I would say, perfect.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I've heard this one. It's the weirdest to me. It's super weird. But even I, first time I heard it, was like, that's not true. Why would that be true? That's so random.
Average teeth in a good way, you know? I don't know why whenever I film, Bambi's like, now's my time to run around and make as much noise as possible. That tapping is her. She's not doing anything valuable. She's sniffing the ground. But she has been asleep for the last 5 hours. So yeah, average teeth in a good way. So when I think of like good teeth would be like those really big fake veneers and they look, you know, Love Island. We've all seen it. The people that go to Turkey and get like big fake teeth. I think that's like good bad teeth or bad good teeth, you know? And then there's obviously bad teeth. Everyone's teeth here are normal. So good work with that one. I'm so sorry that your reputation has bad teeth because I don't see it.
That's a good one. It's a good misconception.
I mentioned this in my previous video, but a common misconception about the UK is the breakdown, which is, I mentioned this in my things that annoy me about the UK video about people being so quick to call me out when I was just like making a simple error and not giving me the benefit of the doubt of knowing what the United Kingdom is versus Britain versus Great Britain, that kind of thing. So...
I mean, I don't blame... from my point of view, that is the number one misconception for Americans, so I sympathize.
The reason for that is because a lot of people don't, and I understand that. Particularly, I think even like Trump, of all people, like the president of the United States made a mistake by saying the wrong one.
Yeah.
And like if the president is making that error, like what good is the average person going to have? You know what, I was going to say if there's anyone watching from the US or outside the UK, I've actually met a lot of UK people that don't know the difference. So I'm going to run through it really quick.
Really? Wait.
To help you in case you don't.
Wait, there's people in the UK who don't know the difference. That makes me feel a lot better.
Don't know. And to prove that I do know, Great Britain is made up of the...
I might as well make this a game for myself. Just to make sure I'm still sharp. Great Britain is Wales, England, and Scotland, right?
Countries, England, Scotland, and Wales. And Scotland and Wales both have their own government. So, you know, there's I think, is it the United Scotland Party?
Really?
There is a Scottish party. They have a lot of opinions. They won most of Scotland, actually.
Huh.
So they're both countries. They're not... And then England, its own country. So they're all different, but they're all under the same umbrella.
Right.
Then the United Kingdom...
United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Wales, and also includes Northern Ireland.
Which, by the way, kingdom is such a good word. It reminds me of, like, Disney.
I feel very smart. Very, very smart.
I love it so much. But yeah, so the United Kingdom is everything I just said, plus Ireland, because it's a different landmass. But then if you go... But then there's also the Channel Islands and the Islands of Man. I'm going to have to read off the list of the islands, because to be honest...
Okay, excuse me. There's even more to this. Just when I thought I was on top of everything, there's these extra little islands I vaguely have heard about. I didn't actually know they technically fit into any definition of the UK. Sorry.
Honest, I'm not an expert on this one. So it is Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney, Sark, Herm, and the Irish Sea, Isle of Man, and the Irish Sea. Those islands are not part of the UK, but they recognise the Queen as their leader. It's kind of like Australia, but a bit more removed.
Huh.
Bit less removed, because you're closer, physically. But then, if you go even
Wow.
further out, there's the British Isles, which is everything I've said. You've got England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Isle of Man, all of the islands I just said, Guernsey, Jersey, blah, Jersey, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, a British Isles. I've heard of that term. I've heard of this. Okay, that makes sense. That's just everything? Literally everything.
And the Republic of Ireland. So even
Ah.
though people often will, I know Irish people get quite annoyed when they say that Ireland's not part of the UK, like the Republic of Ireland, it is part of the British Isles. So
Yeah, so everything. Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland are under that. And a bunch of random little islands that I don't know anything about.
there you go. Quick, brief geography lesson with me. And I've learnt the names of the Channel Islands because I didn't know. So
Okay.
there you go.
By the way, just going back to the theme of this is 100%, maybe the biggest misconception for Americans about the UK is the naming. For sure.
So that was some of the common misconceptions my family and friends have and people I work with or comments I get from Americans. So I thought I'd make a video clearing everything up. I hope
Okay.
you enjoyed it. My shout out of the week goes to Brian O'Keefe. Thank you so much for
Oh, shout out of the week. That's kind of nice. Okay, I guess that's it. The top 10 misconceptions about the UK. Actually, and in her title, she said lies about the UK. These were lies, fibs. I liked this. I really did. This was by Yvette's Vibes. This was very good. I liked it. That was a well-crafted list and entertaining. And it had stuff that actually I didn't know. Which makes sense because they're misconceptions and I'm American and that's the whole point. Yeah. Very, very good stuff. I really do enjoy learning about this stuff, like this stuff in particular, the stereotypes, the misconceptions, the thing. There's all these random little things that as an American I grew up believing or not knowing about the UK, one of the most influential, biggest places on the planet. So it's always very entertaining for me to learn more about it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK culture, stuff about the UK that I've never learned before or seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.